This is one of the bits of machinery that you're going to ask probably a number of questions in your test. I like asking questions about this. And it's the wood lathe. And the wood lathe, one of the first things you need to know is you need to know it is a wood lathe, okay? And what we're going to use the wood lathe for is doing something called turning between centres, which means we're going to put a bit of material in the wood lathe and it's going to spin round and we can turn it into different cylindrical forms. The wood lathe has a number of different parts, and the number of the parts is there's a headstock, there's a tailstock, there's a tool rest, there's a driving fork, there's a revolving centre, called a revolving centre because it spins round, and there's bed rail. The headstock, that has the motor in it, and that drives round the driving fork. The driving fork bites into the material at one end and drives the material round, and that's what powers the material round when you're doing the cutting, called a driving fork. Looks like a fork and it drives the thing round. Revolving centre, called a revolving centre because it spins round as the wood is turning. Old-fashioned ones, you get something called a dead centre, which doesn't spin round and it causes friction there and it heats up and it burns the wood. These are better because they spin round. Live centre. We have a tool rest, called a tool rest because that's where we're going to rest all our tools when we're doing the cutting. The bed rails are there so that we can slide the tailstock. We'll loosen this lever off. We can loosen that, and it means that we can, if I want to do a long bit of turning, I can move it right along the bed rails. It means I can fit in a big long bit of wood and do some turning. And as I'm turning, I can move the tool post into different positions along the bed rails depending on where I want to do the turning. So the bed rails just allow us to position the tool rest and the tailstock. Right, now that we've prepared our blank, okay, the next thing we want to do is we're going to put it in the wood lathe. Okay, so to put it in the wood lathe, first of all, the end that you put the slot in, right, we're going to line up the little mark that you made with your centre punch with the point of the driving fork, and then we're going to, the edges of the driving fork, or the forks of the driving fork, we're going to line up with the line that we put. So we'll pop that in there, make sure it all goes in the centre, and we're all nicely lined up. We're happy with that. Then I'm going to take the tailstock and I'm going to push the live centre so it goes in the other little hole. So now we're in the centre. And then I'm going to lock the tailstock in position with this lever. I'm going to pull it nice and tight so there's no chance that the tailstock can move. After that, I'm going to use this wheel here to move or to drive the revolving so you can watch it. It's getting driven into the wood. Don't want to do it too much, it'll split. But I'm pushing that in until it's nice and secure, and give it a wee shuggle, push it in a little bit more, have a little look at the end there, and you can see that the driving fork is now biting into the material. So a little more, and then we're happy. So I've now made sure that it's the centres are lined up in the driving fork and the revolving centre. I've made sure that the tailstock is locked on the bed, and I've made sure by turning this round the blank is nice and secure. After that, the next thing I want to do is I need to get the tool rest in the right position and at the right height. So what I want to do is I want to get the tool rest to move this into position so it's as close to the material as it can be without touching it, and I would like it to be just below the centre. So at the moment that's too low, so I'm just going to use this and I'm going to move that up and move it in position, and that now is just below the centre, and it's going to allow the thing to spin round freely, but it's nice and close. Switch on the machine, we're going to do a number of checks. The checks would be, make sure the workpiece is nice and centred, make sure it's secure by giving it a little wiggle around, it's not going to come out, make sure that the tailstock is secure on the bed rails and it's locked in place, make sure that my tool rest is at the correct height, and that when the wood spins round it's not going to clunk into the tool rest, and also the tool rest is locked in position on the bed rails. Once I've checked all that, I'm ready to do some turning.